During COVID, pieces of our congregational infrastructure underwent some major changes or even disappeared as we had to adapt quickly from how we've always done things to doing things online and away from the building. And now, as we continue to slowly emerge out of this liminal season of COVID, we're finding that how we've always done things can't ever be fully restored. Our lives have changed, leaving less time and energy to serve on committees or other volunteer roles, even as we embrace a more complex hybrid congregational life. While it can be a bit messy at times as we run into what I call the COVID potholes, we have a real and exciting opportunity to reflect on who we are, what our purpose and mission is, and how we can best embody our covenant for the times we are living in now. We have an opportunity to be intentional and thoughtful as we rebuild our congregational life around what really matters, to who we are and how we want to serve one another, our faith, and our larger world. One area that was significantly impacted during COVID was this, worship. With the move to online and then into hybrid services, we've had to focus on the technological aspect of things, leaving me and the staff and the volunteers involved in worship with little time and energy to do more than plan for the next Sunday. But now we are entering that exciting phase of reimagining. And this past August, I gathered together several people who had indicated to me, they probably regret that, that they were really interested in worship. And rather than going back immediately to what the worship committee had always done, which was finding people to do the readings and the covenants and the chalice lighting, this group, we started by exploring the meaning and purpose of worship and why this particular ministry matters. I assigned a reading. I assigned a book, Worship That Works, by Wayne Arneson and Kathy Rowlands, two Unitarian Universalist ministers who spent their sabbatical visiting other congregations within and beyond Unitarian Universalism and studying the theory and practice of worship in our faith traditions context. You may have heard me say over the years that worship is the central corporate act of our congregational life. Many of the other things that we do here, people can find in secular settings. Social justice and outreach work, book discussions, social gatherings, fundraisers, singing and choral groups, grief and support groups. And I recognize that for individuals here, worship may not be the main reason you come. It may not be important to you at all. But the fact that we gather for worship is what makes us a Unitarian Universalist congregation. In fact, as Arneson and Rowlands point out in their book, to be a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association, you have to do only 3 things: hold regular religious services, hold an annual meeting, keep a record of your members. That's it. Which begs the question, as Arneson and Rowlands note, what are we doing in these regular religious services if we're not worshiping God? What does the gathering for the practice of worship mean for Unitarian Universalists? Rowlands and Arneson found many different answers to this question. Worship is lifting up the highest of human values. It is the public act of reaching deeply into ourselves in ways that are transformative. Worship helps us become the people we want to be. Worship connects us as a community through ritual with one another, with our ancestors and our descendants. Worship engages us in mysteries beyond words. So Rollins and Arneson do not come up with one definition of who or what we worship as Unitarian Universalists. Rather, they describe worship as the practice of human activity at the crossroads between our experiences of the holy and the living of our daily lives. They write, "The apprehension of the holy is an experience that exists both in time and out of time, an experience where body and mind drop away and we have a sense of beauty, awe, and oneness with the world around us, often associated with powerful experiences of beauty and oneness of the natural world or the loving presence of beloved family and friends. Unitarian Universalists make the invisible visible each week in worship. We have holy moments all the time, and sometimes even for a full hour. Sometimes these moments are associated with the ways we use familiar and beloved words in our liturgical elements, like our covenant. Sometimes these moments are involved with the use of our symbols. Sometimes these moments happen as we receive the passion and insight of a speaker. All these moments come together and make sense in our lives because of the gathered community in which they are experienced. Ultimately, in our congregational worship tradition, this is where the holy is found." I find this beautiful that we meet here each week at the crossroads of our apprehension of the holy and our daily lives. It's a big commitment. It is a sacred trust we offer one another and our larger world. Worship is where we discern how the beauty we love becomes the work that we do, the living we embody. Worship is where we gather together before the sacred, before the holy, before what is ultimate and bigger than our own lone lives. Bigger than our worries and our money problems and our fights with our loved ones and our aches and our pains. Bigger than our whole being. And Angela Herrera is right that I, as a pastor, stand with you at the edge of mystery and wonder the same kind of things. Why did the person I love die? Why is there evil in the world, and why do bad things happen to good people while people who do terrible things seem to thrive? Why is there war and violence and suffering if we have been told over and over again that love is the strongest force in the universe, to love our neighbors like ourselves, and that the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice? Where does each human soul come from when they are born into this world? And where do they go after they die? How beautiful and overwhelming is the universe, the cosmos, the amazing infinity of the stars and the planets, and that we have life on this tiny, fragile earth. And how beautiful and overwhelming it is that we, as human beings, are privileged to witness and wonder about it all. Life, the universe, and everything, as Douglas Adams said. Where were you? God asks Job. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set, or who laid its cornerstone while the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy? Were you there? There's a lot of angst these days for religious leaders and scholars, as participation in religious community is dying out. as the number of the nuns and duns, those who've never been part of a religious community or those who have left religion behind, are rising, while the number of those who attend religious services, particularly in Christianity, are falling. Specifically, families are disappearing from the religious landscape as the competing commitments for their time and energy have increased. Over my lifetime as a Unitarian Universalist, and in the 20-plus years of ministry, I have witnessed a shift in the why and when people come to our congregations. It used to be a civic expectation. Everybody went to church. It was a place to come for fellowship, for community, for the religious and spiritual nurture of one's children. Increasingly now, I see people coming to meet a more existential need. Something has shifted in their lives that puts them at the edge of mystery, looking over at it. Maybe it's the loss of a loved one or the unexpected onset of an illness. Maybe it's a change in life that challenges and shifts identity, retirement, the end of a relationship, a new baby, moving to a new place where we know no one. Or maybe it is that existential longing to belong, or a desire to serve something larger than ourselves. I've mentioned before the article in the February 27, 2023 issue of The Economist about the steep increase in the number of deaths of despair in this country. Deaths resulting from alcohol and addiction-associated illnesses, suicide, drug overdoses, and I would add gun violence, particularly among white, middle-aged Americans. And it has been rising at an alarming rate since 2000. This trend began even before the opiate crisis, and it is related to an increasing sense of social isolation and disconnection that has been exacerbated by the COVID pandemic. In fact, in 2023, Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General of the United States, declared loneliness an epidemic and a threat to our public health. According to The Economist article, researchers studying the topic found that states with higher attendance and participation in religious services had fewer deaths of despair, and that the faster religious attendance fell in a state, the more such deaths arose. And it didn't matter the religion or how conservative or how liberal. In addition, they noted that personal prayer or spiritual practices were not linked to a decrease. The article notes, this suggests that the risk reduction stems not from belief, but rather from the interpersonal connection that organized religion provides. Although secular groups like charities or labor unions also produce such social capital, the researchers say that faith-based networks provide unusually potent protection. Think about that for a moment. How powerful, how potent it is that we gather for worship each week. How through this practice, we can save lives. We can save souls, not for the next life or for heavenly reward, but for this life and this earth. We can be a vaccine against social isolation and despair and loneliness and hopelessness. And I think we should be shouting this from our steeple and put it on a banner on our church. Come on in. We save souls from despair. Come, join us. Join us to take the beauty we love, the holy we apprehend for one another, for life, for the creation that surrounds us, and make it the work we do. Imagine how we could change this world if we saw this beauty and made it the work that we do. Through words and music, through silence and ritual. Come. Remember all the generations who come before you. Come and let the armful of worries that we have all brought, take them to the edge of mystery and let them flutter at our feet. And unobscured by these worries, let us shine back the light, light emanating unto light, each of us, with our broken hearts and our seeking and utterance of the holy, of the timeless word. The name of the holy is pronounced through our being and our being together. And so we are reminded when we gather here each week.